Muito bom dia, muito bem-vindos a mais um Motorcast do Stand Virtual. É com muito prazer que estamos aqui novamente convosco. Hoje temos um convidado que vem de bem longe, vem da Tailândia, está 6 horas à nossa frente, é Simon Moran. Simon Moran é o CEO da MottoAuction na Tailândia, onde tem uma posição de liderança em termos de remarketing na Tailândia e, simultaneamente, é uma empresa que neste momento está a crescer a 2 dígitos. Eu já conheço o Simon há muitos anos, é um prazer trazê-lo aqui, será interessante ter também a perspectiva da Tailândia. Meus amigos, Simon está aqui connosco e por isso o Simon é australiano e vive em Banguecoque e por isso eu vou fazer o resto da nossa entrevista em inglês para poder trazer aqui os insights de uma pessoa que tem mais de 30 anos. Simon, good afternoon to you, good morning to us. All good over there in Bangkok?
Good morning, Nino. How are you doing?
Yes, we're very good. Just exciting times. I think it's eventually more exciting than for you. Let me just give a brief introduction in English. I was doing the same thing in Portuguese but you know, I think we know each other probably, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years ago. We started working together. We even worked together. It was a great pleasure, a great experience on my side. I know that now you became your own responsible for your own operation, and you are the CEO of MottoAuction. And that would be the first point I would like to ask you, so that people know someone with more than 30 years experience in automotive that you know so much. You started in Australia, moved on your own to help the company at the time to Thailand, but it would be interesting if you can give us a snapshot of your experience of those 30 years and people understand what you can bring into this interview to us.
Well, thank you, Nuno. It's a pleasure to be with you today. But I started back in 1990, actually, and in fact, next week marks my 30-year anniversary in this industry. I started out in Australia and marched my way through multiple roles in Australia, and then I went to New Zealand to start the company in New Zealand, where we opened 3 branches. And then from there back to Australia for about 6 or 7 months when the business put in SAP into their operating system. And then up to Thailand to help car manufacturers who were recovering after the 1997 crash here, and help them get on with their used car strategies and help the dealers improve their turnover, and added some structure with the auction as a viable way of distributing stock at fair market prices to the dealers. So people often underrate the value of the exchange, and these times are proving to us that this is a very, very important institution in the structure of the market, so that we have a fair exchange and people can keep their stock moving through. So over 30 years, we've gone from paper, lots of paper systems, right up to nearly everything being online, and certainly everything being online here in Thailand. And that's meant that we're able to continue to service the market really well. For MottoAuction is what we named the business after a buyout from management buyout from Cox, from Mannheim. So my 30 years really exist with Cox, and about 2 years here by myself, along with a fantastic Thai team. We employ about 150 people, and our 20-year expansion here in Thailand now has us at close to 20 sites, 4 of which we use for auctions. Well, I should say we normally use for auctions, because normally we have hundreds of people showing up, but at the moment we're not allowed to have any visitors on site, and the entire business is online.
That was exactly the point I was going to ask you, Simon. You know, I think you've been developing now this new brand with MottoAuction. So I think it, like, such as in a brief moment, if I remember correctly, I think you have probably almost 7 or 8 locations across Thailand, and a fantastic team working with you, as we can see here on this picture with I believe your management team.
Yeah, it's now got a lot bigger since the days when you were last here. We've expanded to a number of sites and taken on additional auction sites, of course, additional customers, because our market was still in growth. And it's just meant that we've had to service more customers from more places across the whole of Thailand, and also for different goods. So we now do a lot of agricultural goods, given that the entire economy is a good proportion of the entire economy is agricultural. A lot of motorbikes. I think you're broadcasting image of one of our auctions at the minute where we have a 7-lane operation here in Banguecoque now. And even today, I think today we offered more than 1,400 units. So it's only online. So it's been a very, very busy time for us to transform the business to become digital basically overnight. So a huge challenge for us across all those sites. And we're also unable to travel to them. So we're sort of in semi-lockdown now in the middle of this crisis, and we're not allowed to travel. So we're still doing everything online. Our technology and the investment in technology in the past is now beginning to pay off.
Simon, thank you very much, and that's exactly the point I would like to jump in now. I think it was really interesting for everybody to have a view of yourself and like great experience, and always learn so much with you, but also in terms of this MottoAuction journey that you are going right now. So the other element I would introduce now here is, can you tell us a little bit about the impact of the coronavirus, as we call it here in Europe, more COVID-19, in the case of Thailand, because the numbers that we search around Thailand is really that the impact is low. I imagine that the government has a lot about it, but what's been the impact of the coronavirus over there in Thailand?
If we look from a macroeconomic perspective, I think 38% of GDP or something like that number comes from Chinese tourism or tourism-related industries and tourism supply chain. And that's meant that the Thai government cut off Chinese tourism to Thailand, and that drastically dropped the number of infections very early on. I think it was about mid-February when we had some pretty severe restrictions. Hotels closed, Chinese tourism stopped, the airport stopped, and a number of precautions. And that actually meant that for a short period of time, as I think you're showing the graph now, we saw an increase in infections and unfortunately fatalities. But that has slowly been coming down because the Thais have been relatively firm with their precautions and restrictions on the market and on public transport and so forth. But it's also meant that moving around the city has been severely restricted, and it's just kept the number of infections down. And they also stopped a number of cultural events like Thai New Year, which is normally known as Songkran, where we have massive water celebrations and so forth. So all the public events were completely cancelled, and this meant that the commingling of people in large crowds was being restricted basically from halfway through February. So from a economic point of view, I think it will turn out to be quite significant. We've seen a huge drop in GDP. We've seen the government continuing to spend on military equipment, of all things, at great protest from the people, and severe restrictions on entertainment, on restaurants, on bars, and all the places where people would otherwise congregate, just to mitigate infections. So on
but
the
still,
car,
as I can see, Simon, you are still working from the office. So I think the limitations are probably not as strong as in Europe, because you guys still go to work. I assume your auction lanes are still open, or just moved everything to internet?
What we've done is we moved all the selling to the internet and all the buying to the internet. So we were already operating simulcast, which I think is some of the products that are still around. And that meant that with more than about 700 members online, we simply had to convert the people who were still coming to the auction site in the first week. We converted them to become online members, and then just said, unfortunately, you can't come into the building because we had restrictions on the number of people who could be in the building or on the site. And we simply said, it's easier for us to close the doors and to take everybody online. And that meant that all the buying and all the selling was online. So for many buyers, this was, and many sellers, this system was completely uninterrupted. And from a people management perspective, we've invested a lot of time keeping our team, communicating with our team and keeping them happy, keeping them informed, and keeping people open to the fact that if someone doesn't feel well, then they're not to show up to work, and they're to go and seek medical assistance. On the non-auction days, when we're not running auctions, we've insisted that we split the team 50-50, with 50% working from home and 50% from the auction locations. And we're alternating that so that people still have exposure to the team environment and are kept up to date and feel included with what we're doing. So overall, we've been very lucky.
Very, very interesting. It's like different dynamic, different markets. But the question I would now use what you were talking about is internet sales. When I was working with you over there in Thailand, it was evident that internet sales were peaking, and you were restructuring the whole company to take better pictures and to work more with these technologies. I assume today, and please let us know, that your simulcast sales, that it's the name you use for your online sales, are really taking over and eventually are even more predominant than the offline sales. I don't know if that's the case already. And that's the case that you see right now, that it's really taking over right now, of course, with Corona, but as the market was trending, is that where you are in Thailand?
If we look at it in terms of pre-COVID-19 and then mid-COVID-19, where we are now, probably now, and then where we will be after COVID. If we look before COVID, the business was selling about 30% online and 70% to people who come to the auctions. The efficiency of the business dropped a little bit, which we expected, but it's since recovered. And after COVID's gone, I would actually expect that in-lane activity is going to bounce back quite substantially, but we'll also see an uptake in people who are remaining online. So if we converted them to change to online, they may well stay online moving forward. So I think that the recovery that we see will probably, most surveys are showing us that the intention to buy a car is still reasonably strong. And we expect that the dealer activity will increase. And I expect more public to be coming to the auctions and more dealers to be coming to the auctions once current restrictions are lifted. But we might also see some buyers choosing to stay online and take advantage of being in the air conditioning. I might add, it's 44 degrees here today, so it's a very hot environment for us to be running sales.
I remember those days, Simon. Like, it's impressive. I remember those days being there, and just the people in Portugal. I think not what is today, maybe 20 degrees around here, and in Bangkok 44 degrees. I really miss those days and being there at the dinner that you used to do. We will come back. Simon, so just a provocative question to you. So if you see that increase on the internet sales, do you perceive that the future of your sales to the trade and to the consumers that probably made to the trade would tend to go 100% online?
It's a really interesting time to ask that question, and I think I look back, I was sort of contemplating where we're at and what's happening and what actions we're taking right now and what things were like before and perhaps what things look like in the future. And I've sort of coming back round to this level of trust in not seeing what you're buying. And I think we're still a long way away from people buying used cars on the internet, especially here in Thailand. And the model might have quite a long way to go, given that the fleet is continuing to age, meaning it's actually a little bit difficult to get a huge volume of very good quality cars, which have very few things wrong with them and are readily trustable, or people can endear trust in those vehicles and they're happy to buy them online. It's a fair stretch even for millennials. And one of the things that we've heard, I can't confirm it, but we've heard, is that people have a perception that their own personal safety is probably going to be higher if they're in a personal car than travelling on a train or travelling in a bus. And for this reason, there could be increased activity for people to come back to purchasing their own vehicle and perhaps moving away a little bit from public transport. To that end, we've also seen a big increase in attention and people intending to buy motorbikes because most people ride around by themselves on a motorbike, and it's a pretty easy way to get around the city. So I'm not so sure about buying cars, retail buyers buying cars sight unseen on the internet here, certainly in Southeast Asia, because the quality of vehicle varies so badly or so greatly that it would be very hard for people to see trust in that, not without substantial investment in marketing.
That's a very interesting point that I probably will still pick up on this interview for us in terms of an overall balance of all our conversation. But I was interested, and I was researching for our interview, and I can see you have now a tremendous, nice website. Congratulations! I think you also developed a very good image around the MottoAuction, as I can see on your polo. On your shirt, looks really nice and really impressive. The combination of the white and the yellow, like really coming out. I think as always you have a very good taste. So a tremendous job I can see you are doing. The website looks outstanding with developing many features. But that was one that struck me because I'm really, as you know, linked to it for many years in terms of helping the market, in terms of developing transparency, and helping the market to be more efficient. I seen that you developed a valuation tool for vehicles. I believe you call it Moto Blue Book, where you have like a book of prices and references in terms of the database. Can you share with us what how is being developed, how is being accepted with the market as you becoming more a reference of the pricing of cars for Thailand?
Well, thank you for noticing. We've invested a lot of money in this new artificial intelligence business. It's the first AI-driven business in Thailand, and it's certainly the first one in Thailand's automotive history. We were taking a lot of feedback and some criticism, but also some congratulatory notes about how well we were doing. But at the same time, there was a lot of inquiry about why was there such a big difference between some of the residual values and the auction values, and of course the activity in the new car market. And just circling back to what you said before about transparency, the big question for the entire industry here was there's no price guide that's actually really effective and is out there in the market that's really demonstrating transparency for consumers, but also for dealers, for banks, for finance companies and insurance companies. And as you well know, for some time this has been required in our market. So we invested the money and we built it. It's a very complex thing to build, and it's a very complex thing to build in a market that's actually relatively underdeveloped. So a fair bit of what we've had to do as well is educate people on just what's actually happening in the market versus what they think is happening in the market. And through that, we've been able to add great clarity and transparency. The traffic is lifting on this very quickly, and it sort of forms a really nice mix so that our customers that use the auctions, either if they're buying or selling, can use this resource, and the public can use the resource to see and ensure they're getting a fair price for their vehicle, or whether they're buying or selling. We haven't called it Blue Book, but we've called it Moto Rakar. Rakar in Thai just simply means price. So we've kept the diction very small, kept the spelling very easy, and made it very easy for people to type in Thai or English to be able to access the site. It's the first. You're running a Google translation there, but it's the first incarnation of a AI business in Thailand. And we've received a lot of attention from the government because we've invested in this, and that's exactly what the government want to see happening with the market. So we're very proud of the fact that it's gaining great traction, and the market is familiarising itself very quickly, and usage is coming up very quickly. Can't hear you.
I was muted. This is so stuff can happen on these online interviews. I was just trying to avoid any noise to our interview. So what I was mentioning is, first of all, congratulations. I believe in this a lot. I think it's absolutely fundamental for automotive business to be efficient and to grow, to have transparency. I know you believe in the same, and we know how much effort is to put a good pricing tool up with a good catalog, cleaning the transactions, normalizing the information. I think it's tremendous value. I think both in Portugal and in other markets of OLX, we are going through this journey. So I will jump also here into an element of market that I know you read about this stuff and you have an opinion. So I wanted to see, and you were mentioning about that for sure in Thailand, taking into consideration the quality of the product and the need, especially for the end consumer, they need to check the cars. In your case, bikes. In many situations, that is different from what we have in Europe. But how do you see from a more generic perspective as an automotive expert, the trend like Carvana taking over in a market like US, where it's more representative in terms of completely pure online buying initiative? Do you see that in Thailand? I understand relatively limited, but in your perspective, worldwide, you see this taking off in China, in the US, in the UK, in other markets? How do you perceive the online car buying to move on?
For retail car buying online, I think in Thailand, and for that matter in Southeast Asia, we're probably a long way away from it being a mature, even coming to maturity. The reason is that there are a number of reasons, but the fundamental reason is trust. And at this point, it's very difficult to interrupt the current trading partners or the participants in a normal market transaction. And dealers here are very reluctant to invest significant capital into a facility such as a Carvana example that we would know from the US, because the competition is running at levels which are way lower. So it might sound a bit counterintuitive, but why spend all the money on a massive investment when other people are not doing all but the market as a whole is not actually doing it as to the same extent. I'm not saying the market shouldn't mature, but in fact it should, but it may not go in the direction of online car buying for some time. What we tend to find here too is that the length of ownership of the vehicle is anywhere between 7 and 11 years. So there is not a really good quality supply of really good quality young vehicles to the market, which would otherwise serve the Carvana model really well. And we're still running here, and many countries around here are still running on a hire purchase model, which means it's a flat 48 months, 60 months, 72 months purchase agreement, and then the customer expects to own the vehicle. Lease to own is not very, it doesn't work from a taxation point of view here. So we really don't have many cars being generated that would actually fit into a Carvana sales model. I'm not saying
but as you can see on this picture, Simon, and I understand that. So that's specific about Thailand. It would be hard to have that type of product. But one thing that is also interesting to see on this picture around here on Carvana is that even though everything is going online and Carvana is doing the full process online, they still feel the need to have these physical locations where they have the vending machine where the cars are. So the physical element is still sort of there. So probably almost everything is completely done online, but there's still a number of consumers that want to see the cars and to physically get the car, and that is interesting. So let me jump here into another topic that I wanted to share with you based on the experience we had together. This is more like almost as a provocative idea for Portugal and other markets about new ideas. I remember working with you around the potential, partnership with a site called Tala Roth, if you remember, where these guys had a sort of a unique business model that was very focused first on C2C, so connecting consumers with consumers, transaction. And in the end, they would basically also facilitate a lot the consumer finance, so to finance those transactions between consumers that normally is something that around the world is not cracked yet, right? So you will not see in the US or in the UK, like the most developed markets, a clear financing between C2C and the entities solving the problem. And I think you and me, we've seen that very interesting that Tala Roth was getting into that space. It's Tala Roth still moving on. The concept is going. Can you share something from that unique thing that exists in Thailand?
Yeah, the Tala Roth model was quite appealing, but it's still fraught with the aspects of running an online business and developing the metrics of running a website business. It's also extremely sensitive to the stock that goes in, and the trust of people to complete a transaction with a stranger. Ironically, it does actually work quite well, even though, in my opinion, the site is probably not maximised as much as it should be. But this model where you offer finance services to approved customers or C sellers selling to C buyers, a C2C model, is really, as you say, is a bit unique. And so they're still around, they're still selling, but they're very sensitive to new car and used car price fluctuations. They're very susceptible to new car deals. So if new car discounting or new car finance deals become very aggressive, then this model slows down substantially. It was one of the things that we considered, only because, as you say, it's a C2C model that's actually working, but it's hard to get to scale. So the next step for this business is scale. And personally, I question how they're going to do it, but it's worth time for your viewers to go and have a look at it. It's a little bit hard to read. It doesn't work in English, but for anyone in the industry, you can sort of feel your way around, and you'll find a car, and then you'll be totally shocked by the price, and then then you sort of have to work out how you're going to come to a deal with another buyer or a seller. And then you have to get a bank involved.
But the end game there is to generate finance to help to finance that transaction. End of the day for Tala Roth.
Yeah, that's if the bank is happy to do finance on that vehicle. If the vehicle's too old or the person doesn't qualify for finance, then the car basically becomes a cash transaction, and that process slows back down to what happens in most normal markets.
Simon, so to finish here, I would like to put you two final questions, right? The first one is more related to how do you see and how do you anticipate that the recovery or the full recovery in Thailand? What do you think that the market will become, at least will reach a new norm after this pandemic? What's being anticipated in Thailand?
It's a little bit hard to see what that's going to look like at the minute. I think it's going to probably be a bit of a slow V back out. But the one thing I've learned over the years is don't underestimate what the Thai government or the Thai people, they're very strong people, what they might adopt as perhaps some incentives in the market. We could have a replacement incentive going. We could have a cash for clunkers kind of arrangement going. Or we could just have sink or swim. I'm a little bit edging towards sink and swim at the minute, meaning that it's going to take us a while to burn out of the crisis. And the unemployment that's been generated by this COVID crisis is going to take a while to recover. And that will mean that in a high purchase-based environment, it's going to take us a while to get out of it. Having said that, the quicker it recovers, the better. And I don't see us being in a huge depression here for an extended period. It will recover, but I would expect it to recover before the end of the year. But it may well sink in through to the first quarter of 2021, perhaps. It's just a bit hard to see where we're going with pricing. That's all.
Okay, appreciate it. I think that's a great insight. I believe we have similar expectations about particularly in Portugal. So, final question for you. Also looking into your automotive experience, and it's very interesting that during this interview you already touched a similar point. We will put here, a research that we had access in terms of China, where there was questions about and trying to understand how the consumers from an automotive perspective will address eventually their automotive need on a different way, right? We will put this graphic up, and then as you can see, and I think you already mentioned that it will show that the consumers in China now, after when it's slowing down with COVID, it's clearly that the market and the people may be considering less public transportation and considering back again to own cars. So the ownership around the cars and having your own privacy and not being with so many people. It's something that people are caring about. What do you think? Do you think this is something on the moment on the pandemic, or this may be something that will influence the next at least 12 to 24 months?
I think I'd seen some surveys that demonstrated that in China, the people who were pessimistic about different sectors of the economy were more pessimistic, less pessimistic. In fact, in China, the least pessimistic in the world for auto purchases, meaning there was probably going to be some form of bounce back with the intention to buy a car or the intention to trade or to buy and sell something. And some of the feedback, especially here in Thailand, is that it's actually been safer to be in a private car versus public transportation, and that your chances of infection by being by yourself in the car are obviously a lot less than if you were in a bus or in a train, a heavily congested train. So I think perhaps in China it's a bit hard to see as well, because there's been some conjecture about the accuracy of some of the numbers, but I think it's probably going to be a situation where there is a rebound, a pretty big rebound in China for auto sales. But I have to tell you,
you can see this on this analysis,
sure
right?
What product will be available, what pricing or finance packages might be available, and the level of competency in the market to be able to transact or change cars as quickly as perhaps as some Chinese manufacturers expect might offer some challenges to volume. So it might be a really interesting case to look forward, a little bit like the case that we had when you and I worked together, which was when the Thai government turned on a special bonus, eco car bonus, a super small car cash bonus for people who'd never had a car before, and that really significantly upset the normal patterns of the market. So we might see that in some markets as well as we move forward.
Because as we can see here, Simon, on this analysis, it's really interesting, and for people that are hearing us here on the interview, that this research showed that prior to the outbreak, it was clear that the consumers in China were clearly privileging the bus and the metro and the public transportation, and we can see a tremendous change after the coronavirus outbreak, where clearly the private cars get a completely different on top of the concentration of the people, and even we can see that car sharing and even taxi tends to go down. So there's this swing is evident, and let's see how the market will evolve. And I think it's really good. So to finish, Simon, first of all, please stay safe. I can see things are okay in Thailand. It was really a great pleasure to have you here, and I really appreciate you taking the time also to share your views and your experience with the Portuguese market. I think it was very, very insightful. I'm sure our Portuguese special trade that will look into this interview will take a lot of interesting insights. It was a pleasure, and I'm sure I will connect with you very soon, Simon.
Sure. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Passando então para português, só para fecharmos o Motorcast de hoje. Meus amigos, foi mais uma vez, eu penso que muito interessante, aqui praticamente uma ligação com o outro lado do mundo, com a Tailândia, com o Simon Moran. Tem uma perspectiva não apenas daquilo que se está a passar na Tailândia, mas também simultaneamente uma perspectiva de alguém que, como eu comentava, atinge agora este ano 30 anos de experiência automóvel e tem uma visão global sobre aquilo que se está a passar no mundo e na Tailândia e nas novas tendências. Acho que foi interessante. Em breve voltaremos a estar aqui com mais pessoas relevantes da indústria, quer a nível nacional, quer a nível internacional, para o próximo Motorcast aqui no stand virtual. Mantenham-se seguros, no entretanto. Penso que estamos todos convictos que a retoma está aí a chegar. Maio já será um mês de maior recuperação. Nós continuaremos aqui e ajudar o mercado de uma forma global nesta recuperação, não apenas a nível dos nossos profissionais, que é o foco aqui do nosso podcast, mas também a promover a procura do lado dos nossos compradores, que na globalidade vai ajudar ao crescimento do mercado. Meus amigos, foi um prazer, mantenham-se atentos, até ao próximo Motorcast aqui no Stand Virtual.